The council chamber on Concordia Prime was the largest structure ever built in neutral space. Its walls were made of transparent aluminum, showing the stars beyond. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned seats. The air was filled with the sounds of different languages being translated by machines. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked to the center platform. She was human, and she had been making the same speech for 3 months now. Her gray suit was simple compared to the colorful robes and armor worn by other ambassadors. She carried only a datapad in her hands. The Cravathi Empire was the problem. They had been taking planets that did not belong to them. They destroyed colonies and took resources without asking. 3 species had already lost their home worlds to Cravathi weapons. The council kept telling everyone to be patient, to negotiate, to give the Cravathi time to change. Chen cleared her throat. The translation machines picked up her voice and sent it to every seat in the chamber. "Council members, I stand before you again to ask for action," she said. "The Cravathi have taken another system. The Palaxian colonies on Remora 4 are gone. 15,000 people died yesterday. A large insect-like creature named Zixthar clicked its mandibles. He was the head of the council. His species had been traveling through space for 10,000 years. Ambassador Chen, we understand your concern. But war is not the answer. We must find a peaceful solution." Chen's hands tightened on her datapad. She had given this speech so many times that she had memorized it. But each time the answer was the same. "With respect, Council Head, the Cravathi do not want peace. They want territory. They want power. And they are killing innocent people to get it." A bird-like ambassador from the Quillan Federation chirped loudly. The translation came through. "Perhaps the humans should defend these colonies if they care so much." "Oh wait, humanity barely has a military. You have what, 50 ships? The Cravathi have thousands." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind that comes from people who think they know better. The humans were known throughout the galaxy as the peaceful species. They had small armies. They spent more money on hospitals and schools than weapons. Other species thought this made them weak. Chen waited for the laughter to stop. Her face showed no emotion. "We do have a military, yes. It is small by choice, not by inability. I ask you again, Council, to take action before this situation gets worse." Zixthar waved one of his legs dismissively. "We will send another diplomatic mission to the Cravathi Emperor. Ambassador Chen, your people must learn that not every problem can be solved. Sometimes we must accept reality." Chen stood very still for a moment. Then she spoke again, and her voice was quieter than before. "Please, Council, I am begging you. Stop the Cravathi now before humanity has to do it ourselves. You do not want to see what happens when we are forced to act." More laughter. The Quillan ambassador actually flapped its wings in amusement. "Is that a threat, human? Are you going to unleash your 50 ships on the mighty Cravathi Empire?" Chen shook her head slowly. "Not a threat. A warning. We are asking you nicely. Please do not make us angry. Do not make us show you what we really are." The council voted. 42 members voted to send another diplomatic team. 5 members voted for military action. Humanity voted alone. As Chen left the chamber, she passed by an old ambassador she had never seen before. This creature looked like a snake with arms covered in purple scales. The ambassador was from a species called the Velnar, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. The Velnar ambassador, whose name was Velnara, touched Chen's arm gently. "I voted with you. Ambassador Chen, I have studied your people. I know your history. They should listen to you." Chen looked at the elderly ambassador with tired eyes. "Thank you. But I fear they will not understand until it is too late." That night, Chen returned to her quarters on the station. She sent a message back to Earth. It was a simple message, just 3 words. They said no. 1 week later, the Cravathi attacked again. This time, they chose a human target. The agricultural colony on New Manitoba was home to 10,000 farmers and their families. They grew food that fed millions across 3 systems. The Cravathi ships arrived without warning. They did not ask for surrender. They did not give anyone time to evacuate. They simply fired their weapons at the settlements below. Within an hour, New Manitoba was burning. Within a day, everyone was dead. The Cravathi Emperor sent a message to the council afterward. He said the attack was justified because humans had refused to give up some mining rights in a nearby system. He said it was a lesson to all weak species who did not respect Cravathi power. When the news reached Concordia Prime, Ambassador Chen was in her office. She read the report 3 times. Her hands shook as she held the data pad. 10,000 people, men, women, children, gone. She walked to her window and looked out at the stars. For a long time, she did not move. Then she picked up her communication device and made a call to Earth. The conversation was short. When it ended, Chen sat down at her desk and put her head in her hands. "I tried," she whispered to the empty room. "I really tried. Now there is no choice left." The next day, the council held an emergency session. Every ambassador was required to attend. The chamber was fuller than Chen had ever seen it. Everyone wanted to talk about what to do about the attack on New Manitoba. But when the session began, Ambassador Chen's seat was empty. Zixthar looked confused. "Where is the human ambassador? This session concerns her people directly." A junior human diplomat stood up. He was young and looked nervous. "Ambassador Chen has been recalled to Earth, Council Head. She will not be returning to Concordia Prime." "Recalled? At a time like this? The humans are running away?" The Quillen ambassador chirped. The young diplomat swallowed hard. "No, sir. Not running, preparing. Preparing for what?" The young man looked around the chamber. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "We asked you to stop them. You refused. We begged you to help us. You laughed. So now humanity will provide its own answer to the Kravathi problem. Ambassador Chen wanted me to deliver one final message. She is truly sorry it came to this. We all are." With that, the young diplomat gathered his things and left the chamber. As he walked out, he did not look back at the confused faces of the council members. He had delivered the message. Now everything else was out of his hands. In the council chamber, Velnara the historian watched the human leave. Her old eyes were sad. She turned to Zixthar. "Council head, may I request an emergency session? I need to show you all something. Something about humanity that you need to understand." Zixthar waved a leg dismissively. "Not now, historian. We have more important matters. The humans are upset, yes, but they will calm down. They always do. They are a peaceful people." Velnara looked at him for a long moment. Then she spoke very quietly. "That is what worries me, Council Head. They are peaceful. And you have just given them a reason not to be." 3 days passed after the human diplomat left the council. During those days, the council celebrated. They thought they had handled the situation well. Zixthar gave speeches about wisdom and patience. The Quillen ambassador wrote articles praising the council's diplomatic approach. Everyone seemed happy except for one person. Velnara, the old historian, sat in her small office surrounded by data files. She had spent 50 years studying Earth before humans joined the galactic community. What she had learned terrified her. And now nobody would listen. She tried to schedule meetings with council members. Most ignored her requests. A few sent polite messages saying they were too busy. Only 3 agreed to meet with her, and they seemed bored during the entire conversation. On the 4th day, Velnara made a formal request. She asked to present her research to the full council. It took 2 days for them to approve it, and when they did, it was scheduled for late at night when most members would not attend. When Velnara entered the council chamber that night, only 8 members were present. Zixthar was there because he had to be, but he looked annoyed. The others were junior ambassadors or assistants sent by their superiors. Velnara walked slowly to the center platform. She was very old even by her species standards. Her purple scales had faded to gray in places, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "Thank you for coming," she began. "I know it is late, but what I need to tell you cannot wait." Zixthar clicked his mandibles impatiently. "Please be brief, historian. Some of us have work in the morning." Velnara activated her data display. Images appeared in the air above the platform. Images of Earth. I have studied humanity for half a century. I was part of the first contact team that met them. Do you know what I found? Nobody answered. Velnara continued anyway. I found a species that had nearly destroyed itself, multiple times. Not through accident. Not through natural disaster. Through choice, new images appeared. Pictures of old Earth wars. Cities burning. Soldiers fighting. Weapons exploding. These are from their world wars. 2 massive conflicts where humans killed each other by the millions. They used poison gas. They firebombed cities. They created weapons that could level entire countries. One of the junior ambassadors yawned. So they had wars. Every species has wars in their past. That is why we have the council now. Velnara shook her head. You do not understand. Most species fight until they cannot fight anymore. Then they learn peace. Humans learned peace while they could still fight. That is very different. She brought up more images. Documents with strange human writing. Treaties, laws, agreements, look at these. The Geneva Conventions. Rules for how to fight wars fairly. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. An agreement to limit the most terrible weapons. The Biological Weapons Convention. A promise to never use diseases as weapons. Zixthar waved a leg dismissively. So they made rules. Good for them. What does this have to do with the current situation? Velinara's voice became harder. These rules exist because humans had already used these weapons. They did not ban poison gas because they were afraid of it. They banned it because they had used it and knew how horrible it was. They did not limit nuclear weapons because they could not build them. They limited them because they had already dropped 2 on their own cities. The chamber became a little quieter. A few of the ambassadors were paying attention now. Velinara brought up a new file. It was labeled Restricted Human Military Database. This database is public. Anyone can access it, but nobody has bothered to read it. I have. Do you know what I found? She began listing items. Each one appeared in the air as she spoke. 847 different weapon systems, all banned by human law, not because they could not build them, but because they chose not to. Drones that can think for themselves, viruses that target specific genes, machines that can reproduce and spread like diseases, weapons that change gravity, weapons that change time, weapons that target minds instead of bodies. Now everyone in the chamber was listening. Even Zixthar had stopped moving. All of these exist, Velinara said quietly. Humans know how to make them. They have the plans, the technology, the materials. They just choose not to. They locked them away 300 years ago when they decided to become a peaceful species. Zixthar finally spoke. His voice was uncertain. You are saying humans are pretending to be weak? No, I'm saying humans chose to be peaceful. That is not the same as being weak. A warrior who chooses not to fight is very different from someone who cannot fight. Velinara showed one more document. It was written in simple human language. This is from Earth's Department of Peace. It was written when they joined the galactic community. It says, we come to the stars not because we have forgotten what we are capable of, but because we remember. We seek peace not because we fear war, but because we understand its true cost. We are capable of terrible things. That is why we must be better. The chamber was silent. Velinara looked around at the few faces present. Ambassador Chen tried to warn you. She begged you to stop the Kravathi, not because humans are weak, but because humans know what will happen if they are forced to respond. They have been trying desperately to avoid becoming what they used to be. Zixthar stood up. This is speculation. Even if humans have these old weapons, it has been 300 years. They probably do not even work anymore, and their military is tiny. 50 ships cannot defeat the Kravathi Empire. Velinara looked at him sadly. Councilhead, you are not listening. The weapons are not the danger. The danger is that you have pushed a peaceful people beyond their breaking point, and you have no idea what they will do next. But Zixthar was already leaving. The other ambassadors followed him. Within minutes, Velinara stood alone in the empty chamber. Her presentation hovered in the air, showing images of Earth's bloody history. But nobody was there to see it. The next day, the Kravathi struck again. They attacked 2 more human colonies. Proxima Station, humanity's oldest space settlement, was destroyed. 50,000 people died. The station had been built by the first humans to leave Earth. It held museums, libraries, and monuments to human achievement. Now it was debris floating in space. The Kravathi Emperor appeared on every news channel in the galaxy. He was a massive creature covered in thick armor plates. His species was known for being aggressive and proud. Let this be a lesson, the Emperor announced. The humans are weak. Their council does nothing. We take what we want. Anyone who opposes the Kravathi Empire will end up like these human colonies. We are the butchers. They are the cattle. The galaxy watched and did nothing. Most species were afraid of the Kravathi. Others did not want to get involved in someone else's war. The council held another meeting and decided to send another diplomatic mission. Nobody expected it to work. Nobody really cared anymore. But then something strange started happening. Human civilian ships began leaving every port in the galaxy. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, research ships, mining craft. All of them received the same message and all of them made emergency jumps back to human space. Within a week, There were no human ships anywhere except in the solar system. The effect was immediate and devastating. Trade routes collapsed. It turned out that humans ran most of the cargo transport in 3 major sectors. Supply chains broke down. Many stations depended on human food shipments. Communication networks failed because humans maintained most of the relay stations between systems. The Council received thousands of complaints. Species were running out of supplies. Businesses were losing money. But nobody could contact any human officials. All human embassies had closed. All human representatives had gone home. Velnara watched all of this from her office. She knew what it meant. The humans were not running away. They were clearing the field. On the 10th day after Proxima Station was destroyed, something appeared in human space. Every sensor in the galaxy picked it up. Ships. Thousands and thousands of ships. They came from behind the moon, from orbital stations around Mars, from the asteroid belt, from hidden bases in the outer planets. The galaxy had thought humanity had 50 military vessels. They were wrong. Those 50 ships were just the ones humans let others see. The real fleet had been hidden in plain sight for 300 years. Every human cargo ship had been a warship with a civilian hull. Every research station had been a weapons development facility. Every mining operation had been producing military equipment. Humanity had not given up their weapons. They had simply hidden them and prayed they would never need them again. The numbers made military analysts across the galaxy recalculate everything. Humanity had the second largest fleet in known space. Only the ancient Velnar had more ships, and they had built theirs over 10,000 years. Humanity had done it in 300. In the council chamber, Zixthar stared at the reports in disbelief. He had called an emergency session, and this time every single seat was filled. "This cannot be accurate," he said. "Humans have been peaceful for centuries. Where did these ships come from?" Velnara stood up slowly. Her voice carried across the silent chamber. "They have always been there, Council Head. We just did not look. We assumed peace meant weakness. We were wrong. Humanity remained peaceful by staying prepared for war. They hoped they would never need these weapons. We made sure they did." The 12 hours passed slowly. The Kravathi Emperor did not respond to the human ultimatum. Instead, he gave a speech declaring that the Kravathi Empire would never surrender to weak humans. He called them cowards hiding behind empty threats. He ordered his military to prepare for war. The galaxy watched and waited. News channels showed the human fleet gathering near the edge of Kravathi space. Military experts from every species analyzed the situation. Most thought the Kravathi would win. They had more experience, more territory, more resources. The fact that humans had a large hidden fleet was surprising, but the Kravathi had been conquering worlds for 200 years. When the 12-hour deadline ended, nothing happened for exactly 3 minutes. Then everything happened at once. The human fleet did not attack Kravathi military forces. They went around them completely. Instead, they targeted every single Kravathi military production facility in the Empire. Shipyards, weapons factories, training centers, supply depots, all of them everywhere at the same time. The weapons the humans used had never been seen before. Missiles that seemed to know exactly where to go, that could not be stopped or detected. Beams of energy that cut through shields like they were not even there. Small machines that attached to ships and bases and simply took them apart piece by piece. In 14 minutes, 90% of Kravathi military infrastructure was destroyed. 14 minutes. The Kravathi military commanders could not even organize a response before it was over. And the strangest part was that not a single civilian died. The human weapons were so precise that they could destroy a military base, while leaving a nearby school completely untouched. Buildings were taken apart floor by floor, with computer systems broadcasting warnings to everyone inside to evacuate first. The galaxy was shocked. This level of precision was impossible, yet humans had done it. They had destroyed an empire's military in the time it took most species to have lunch. The council held another emergency meeting. The chamber was in chaos. Everyone was shouting. Some ambassadors wanted to stop the humans immediately. Others wanted to let them finish the Kravathi. A few were simply too stunned to speak. Zixthar tried to restore order. "We must intervene. The humans have violated 17 different galactic laws about weapons. They cannot be allowed to continue." A new voice interrupted him. It was Ambassador Chen. She had returned to Concordia Prime. She walked into the chamber wearing a military uniform instead of her diplomatic suit. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "You want to intervene now?" she asked quietly. "We asked for your help 23 times. We begged you to stop the Cravathi before this happened. You called us weak. You laughed at our warnings. You told us to accept reality." She walked to the center platform. Every eye in the chamber followed her. "Now you call us monsters because we are doing what you refused to do. You see our weapons and you are afraid. Good. You should be afraid, because we tried to spare you from seeing this. We tried to spare ourselves from becoming this, but you gave us no choice." The Quillen ambassador spoke up. "You have violated laws that protect all species. Your weapons are too dangerous to exist." Chen looked at the bird-like creature. "We know we wrote those laws. 300 years ago, humanity decided these weapons should never be used. We banned them ourselves before we ever met you. We locked them away. We built a peaceful civilization, and we warned you not to make us unlock them again." Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring. New reports came in from the borders of Cravathi space. The Cravathi military, desperate and angry, had launched a massive counterattack. They were not going after human military targets. They were heading straight for human civilian populations. 500 Cravathi warships jumped into the Tau Ceti system, where 3 billion humans lived on 7 different planets. The Cravathi commander sent a simple message: "Surrender immediately or watch your worlds burn." Chen's face went pale. She grabbed her communication device and started giving orders. But everyone in the chamber could see she was afraid. The human fleet was too far away. They could not reach Tau Ceti in time to stop the Cravathi. The Cravathi ships began firing on the first planet. Their weapons were designed to destroy everything. Cities would be ash in minutes. Billions would die, but the weapons never reached the surface. Something appeared between the Cravathi ships and the planets. At first, it looked like empty space was bending. Then the defense platforms became visible. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the galaxy had never seen. Thousands of them surrounding every human world. The platforms activated. The Cravathi ships simply stopped moving. Their engines went dead. Their weapon systems shut down. Their life support continued working, but everything else just turned off. 500 warships became 500 floating boxes in space, completely helpless. Human rescue ships appeared and began moving the Cravathi vessels away from the inhabited worlds. They took the ships and crews to empty space where they could do no harm. They even sent medical supplies to the Cravathi ships to make sure nobody died. In the council chamber, everyone stared at the screens showing what had happened. The Cravathi attack had been stopped without firing a single shot. Not one Cravathi soldier had been killed. The humans had defended themselves with such complete control that they had protected even their enemies. This was what truly frightened the galaxy. Not the power of human weapons, but the control humans had over that power. They could destroy with precision. They could defend without killing. They had the ability to commit terrible violence but chose to use it carefully. That combination was more terrifying than simple destructive capability. Velnara spoke into the silence. "Do you see now? This is what Ambassador Chen tried to tell you. Humans are not dangerous because they have powerful weapons. They are dangerous because they understand exactly what those weapons can do. They have killed billions of their own people in their past. They know the weight of every death. That is why they tried so hard to avoid this." The Cravathi Emperor, watching from his throne world, finally understood his mistake. He tried to call for peace negotiations, but humans did not respond to his messages. The human fleet had already begun the second phase of their response. They did not attack the Cravathi homeworld. They did not target civilians. Instead, they began a systematic dismantling of Cravathi military power throughout the entire empire. Planet by planet, system by system, human forces arrived and shut down Cravathi military operations. They disabled weapons. They captured military leaders. They destroyed war machines. And everywhere they went, they made sure civilians were safe. The Cravathi military tried to fight back. But every weapon they used had a counter. Every strategy they tried had already been predicted. Humans had spent 300 years studying war while pretending to forget it. They knew every trick, every tactic, every possible response. After 5 days, the Cravathi resistance collapsed. The Emperor's own guards surrendered to human forces. The imperial palace was surrounded. Human soldiers walked through the halls broadcasting messages of peace and offering medical aid to anyone who was hurt. Commander Asha Okonkwo personally arrested the Emperor. She was a tall woman who had fought in border skirmishes for 20 years. She had never wanted this war. None of the humans had. The Emperor looked at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Why did you not kill me? Why did you not destroy my world? You had the power." "I would have." Okonkwo looked at him with tired eyes. "That is the difference between us. We have the power to destroy you, but we remember what it feels like to be destroyed. We know the pain of losing everything. We will not inflict that pain on others even when they deserve it. You will stand trial for your crimes. You will face justice. But you will live." The war was over. It had lasted 11 days. The Kravathi Empire, which had conquered worlds for 2 centuries, was dismantled by a species they had called weak. Human forces occupied Kravathi space not as conquerors but as peacekeepers. They began the long process of rebuilding what the Empire had destroyed over the years. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity had shown power beyond anything anyone had imagined, but they had also shown restraint beyond anything anyone had expected. They had won the war while causing the minimum possible harm. They had protected even their enemies when they could, but the victory felt hollow to the humans themselves. In the council chamber, Ambassador Chen stood before the assembly. She had been called to answer for humanity's actions. The council wanted to charge humans with using illegal weapons. They wanted to put limits on human military power. They wanted to make sure this never happened again. Chen looked around at the faces of the ambassadors. Many looked angry. Some looked afraid. A few looked ashamed. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "You want to put us on trial. You want to judge us for defending ourselves. But before you do, I want you to understand something. Every human soldier who fought in this war is now in therapy. Our suicide rates have tripled. Our hospitals are full of people having nightmares. We won the war in 11 days, but we will live with what we did for the rest of our lives." She activated a display showing images from Earth, soldiers crying, citizens protesting the war, children asking why humanity had become violent again. The council did not respond to Ambassador Chen's words immediately. They could not. Her speech had left them speechless. After she left, the chamber remained silent for nearly an hour. Nobody knew what to say. Nobody knew what to do. Zixthar finally called for a vote. Should humanity be charged with using illegal weapons? Should they be punished for how they won the war? The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some ambassadors argued that laws existed for a reason. If humanity could break them, anyone could. Others pointed out that humanity had only acted after the council failed to protect them. A few quietly admitted that they would have done the same thing in humanity's position. Velnara gave another speech. This time, everyone listened. "You want to judge humanity for their weapons. But I ask you to judge yourselves first. The Kravathi attacked human colonies. 60,000 civilians died. Humanity came to us 23 times asking for help. 23 times we said no. We told them to be patient. We told them to accept reality. We abandoned them." She paused, looking around at the assembled ambassadors. Humanity used terrible weapons, yes, but they used them with more care than the Kravathi used simple guns. Not a single Kravathi civilian died in this war. The humans could have destroyed worlds. Instead, they protected everyone, even their enemies. They showed restraint we did not believe possible. And now we want to punish them for it? The vote came down. 42 members voted to drop all charges against humanity. 5 voted to continue prosecution. When the results were announced, there was no celebration. Everyone understood that something fundamental had changed in galactic politics, but the damage was already done. Humanity had seen how the galaxy treated them in their time of need. They had learned that the Council would not protect them. They had learned that they were alone. In the months that followed, human ambassadors began withdrawing from Council affairs. They attended meetings, but rarely spoke. When asked for help with galactic problems, they politely declined. When invited to join joint operations, they said no. Humanity was pulling away from the galaxy slowly but surely. The effect was immediate. Trade agreements fell apart. Scientific collaborations ended. Cultural exchanges stopped. The galaxy was losing humanity, and nobody knew how to fix it. Ambassador Chen resigned from her position. She returned to Earth and took a job teaching history at a university. When reporters asked her why she left, she gave a simple answer. "I spent 20 years building bridges between humanity and the galaxy. I watched those bridges burn in 11 days. I am tired." In Cravathi space, the rebuilding continued. Human forces had occupied the former empire, but they were not conquerors. They were teachers. They helped the Cravathi set up a democratic government. They provided food and medicine. They rebuilt schools and hospitals. They even released prisoners who had fought against them. The Cravathi people were confused at first. They had expected slavery or destruction. Instead, they got help. Human soldiers taught Cravathi children. Human doctors treated Cravathi sick. Human engineers rebuilt Cravathi cities. A young Cravathi journalist named Kickstar began documenting the occupation. She interviewed human soldiers about their experiences. What she found surprised her. Most of the human soldiers were miserable. They had nightmares, they could not sleep. They cried when they talked about the battles. Even though they had won quickly and carefully, even though they had protected civilians, they were still traumatized by what they had done. Kickstar interviewed a human medic named James Chen. He had treated both human and Cravathi wounded during the war. She asked him why humans seemed so sad after winning. James looked at her with tired eyes. "We are sad because we remember our history. Every human grows up learning about World War II, where 50 million people died. We learn about the atomic bombs that destroyed entire cities. We learn about genocides and massacres and all the terrible things humans did to each other. We promised ourselves we would never do those things again." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But then we had to go to war. We tried so hard to avoid it. We begged the council to help. They would not. So we did what we had to do. We won the war. We protected people. We showed restraint. But it does not change the fact that we had to become warriors again. We had to remember how to kill, and that knowledge will never leave us. We are crying because we understand what we are capable of now, and it terrifies us." Kickstar published her interviews. They spread throughout the former Cravathi Empire and beyond. Many species began to understand what Velnara had tried to tell them. Humanity's strength came not from their weapons, but from their understanding of violence and their determination to avoid it. The former Cravathi emperor stood trial for his crimes. The court was run by an independent judiciary, not by human forces. The prosecutors presented evidence of attacks on civilian populations, unlawful invasions, and war crimes. The emperor had no defense. He was found guilty on all charges. But the sentence was not death. Instead, he was given life imprisonment. He would live, but he would spend every day seeing the consequences of his actions. Human therapists even offered to help him, though he refused. The Cravathi people elected their first democratic government. They chose leaders who promised peace and cooperation. They began reaching out to the species they had once conquered, offering apologies and reparations. It was a slow process, but it was happening. Human forces began withdrawing after 2 years. They left behind advisors and teachers, but the military presence ended. The new Cravathi government was stable enough to stand on its own. As the human ships left Cravathi space, thousands of Cravathi citizens came to see them off. They held signs thanking the humans. They cried and waved. Many had grown close to the human soldiers and doctors who had helped them. It was a strange goodbye between former enemies who had become something like friends. But when those ships returned to human space, they did not go back out again. Humanity continued its slow withdrawal from galactic affairs. They maintained their embassies but sent smaller delegations. They kept trade relationships but did not expand them. They answered calls for help but did not volunteer assistance. The galaxy began to feel humanity's absence. There were small things at first. Human cargo ships had always been reliable and cheap. Now, freight costs increased because humans were not competing for contracts. Human mediators had helped resolve dozens of minor conflicts. Now those conflicts lasted longer and cost more lives. Human scientists had shared their research freely. Now that research stayed on human worlds, human artists had performed throughout the galaxy. Now they stayed home. Human doctors had volunteered in disaster zones. Now they worked only in human territory. The Council tried to reach out. They sent delegations to Earth asking humanity to return to full participation. Every delegation was received politely and sent home with the same answer. Humanity needed time to heal. Zixthar, the council head, requested a personal meeting with Earth's leadership. He was invited to come, but the meeting was cold and brief. The human president listened to his apologies and requests. Then she gave a response that Zixthar would never forget. Council head, you are asking us to trust the galaxy again, to believe that next time we need help, the council will be there. But we cannot forget what happened. We asked for help 23 times. We begged. We warned. We did everything we could to avoid war. And the council abandoned us. Every human alive today knows that when we needed the galaxy most, we stood alone. That knowledge has changed us. Perhaps in time we can forgive. But we will never forget. Zixthar returned to Concordia Prime defeated. He reported to the council that humanity would remain distant for the foreseeable future. Some ambassadors were angry. Others were sad. A few said good riddance. But Velnara understood what it really meant. We have lost something precious, she said. Humanity showed us a different way to be strong. They proved that power and peace could coexist. They demonstrated restraint beyond anything we thought possible, and we rejected them when they needed us most. Now they are leaving, and we are poorer for it. Years passed. The Krivathi continued their transformation. Other species began adopting human methods of conflict resolution. The galaxy became a little more peaceful, a little more careful. The lessons of the 11-day war spread slowly but surely. 3 new wars were prevented using mediation techniques humans had developed. 2 species resolved a century-old dispute using human negotiation frameworks. The galaxy was learning, slowly, what humanity had tried to teach them all along. But humanity remained mostly isolated. They watched from a distance. They shared their knowledge when asked, but did not push it on anyone. They had learned their lesson too. They had tried to be part of the galaxy, and the galaxy had shown them they would always be alone when it mattered most. In a quiet university on Earth, former Ambassador Sarah Chen taught a class on galactic politics. Her students were young humans who had grown up during the isolation period. They did not remember when humanity was fully integrated with the galaxy. One student raised her hand. Professor Chen, do you think humanity will ever fully rejoin the galactic community? Chen looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. She was older now, her hair completely gray. 10 years passed. A full decade since the 11-day war. The galaxy had changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The Krivathi were now a peaceful democracy, trading partners with many of the species they had once threatened. 3 other aggressive empires had been peacefully dismantled using methods humans had pioneered. The Council had reformed its procedures to better respond to threats against member species, but humanity remained distant. They participated in the Council, but always at arm's length. They traded, but not as freely as before. They shared knowledge, but only when asked. The warmth that had once characterized human diplomacy was gone, replaced by polite professionalism and careful distance. A new generation was coming of age. Young people who had been children during the war were now adults. They had grown up hearing stories about the 11 days that changed everything. On human worlds, these young people learned a dual lesson. Be peaceful, but be prepared. Trust others, but rely on yourself. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. In other parts of the galaxy, young people were learning different lessons. A Krivathi student named Kixvan was researching human history for her university thesis. She was the daughter of the journalist Kickstar, who had documented the human occupation. Kixvan had grown up with stories about human soldiers who cried when they talked about war. For her research, Kixvan accessed the human historical database that Velnara had discovered years ago. She spent months reading. She learned about World War I and World War II. She learned about the Cold War, when humans built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planet several times over. She learned about genocides and massacres and all the terrible things humans had done to themselves. But she also learned about something else. She learned about humans who had fought against the violence, people who had protested wars, scientists who had warned about nuclear weapons, ordinary citizens who had stood up against their own governments to demand peace. She learned about the long, difficult process of humans learning to be better than their worst instincts. Kickspan wrote her thesis. She titled it, "The Humans Asked Us Not to Make Them Mad. We thought they were afraid of us. They were afraid of themselves." The thesis became required reading in universities across the former Kravathi Empire. Then it spread to other species. Young people throughout the galaxy began to understand what their parents' generation had not. Humanity's warnings had not been threats. They had been genuine pleas for help. Humans had not wanted to show their military power. They had been desperate to avoid it. The restraint that others had mistaken for weakness had actually been incredible strength. This new understanding began to change things. Young ambassadors came to the council with different attitudes. They did not mock human caution. They did not dismiss human concerns. They listened. They learned. And slowly, very slowly, they began to rebuild trust. On Concordia Prime, Velnara was approaching the end of her long life. She was over 200 years old now, ancient even by Velnar standards. She spent most of her time in her office, surrounded by the historical documents she had collected over a lifetime of research. One day she received a visitor, a young human diplomat named Marcus Chen, grandson of the former ambassador. He had requested this meeting specifically. Velnara looked at the young man with her old, tired eyes. He looked remarkably like his grandmother, with the same steady gaze and thoughtful expression. "Thank you for seeing me, historian Velnara," Marcus said. "My grandmother spoke of you often. She said you were the only one who truly understood." Velnara nodded slowly. "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman. I am sorry she is no longer with us. But I see much of her in you." Marcus sat down. "I came to ask you something. As you know, I am part of the new generation of human diplomats. We did not live through the war. We only know the stories. But we carry the weight of what happened. The question is, should we continue to keep our distance? Or is it time to try again?" Velnara was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke carefully. "The galaxy failed your people. That is a fact that cannot be changed. But the galaxy has also learned from that failure. Not everyone, perhaps, but enough. The young people of today's galaxy understand what my generation did not. They have read the histories. They have learned the lessons. The question is not whether they are ready for humanity to return. The question is whether humanity is ready to trust again." Marcus nodded slowly. "That is what we debate on Earth. Some say we should never fully engage with the galaxy again, that we should remain independent, ready to stand alone. Others say isolation serves no one, that we are stronger together, even if trust is difficult. I do not know which side is right." "Perhaps both sides are right," Velnara said. "Perhaps humanity should engage with the galaxy again. But perhaps you should also remember the lessons you learned. Trust but verify. Cooperate but maintain your independence. Hope for the best but prepare for the worst. These are not contradictions. They are wisdom." Marcus thought about this. "My grandmother left a message for me before she died. She said that humanity's greatest strength was not our weapons or our technology. It was our ability to remember, to learn from the past without being trapped by it. She said the question was not whether we could forgive the galaxy. The question was whether we could forgive ourselves for what we became." Velnara's eyes grew wet. "Your grandmother was very wise, and she was right. Humanity's burden is not the war you fought. It is the knowledge of what you are capable of. That knowledge will never leave you, but it does not have to define you. You can be both the warriors who won in 11 days and the peacemakers who rebuilt the Kravathi. You can hold both truths at once." They talked for hours. When Marcus finally left, he carried with him a gift from Velnara. It was a data crystal containing all her research on humanity, decades of work, documenting both the horrors humans had committed and the peace they had built afterward. "Share this with your people," Velnara said. "Let them see themselves through the eyes of someone who studied them for half a century. Let them understand that their struggle to be better is visible, is admirable, is worth continuing, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard." Marcus returned to Earth with the crystal. It was shared widely. Millions of humans read Velnara's analysis of their species. Many cried. Some were angry, But most felt something they had not felt in 10 years. Seen, understood, recognized not just as warriors or victims, but as people trying their best to overcome their own nature. The Earth government held a referendum. Should humanity fully re-engage with the galactic community? The debate was fierce. But eventually the vote came down. 53% voted yes. 47% voted no. It was close, but it was enough. Humanity announced it would return to full participation in the council. But they also announced new conditions. Human forces would maintain their independence. Human civilians would never again be left undefended. And if the council ever failed to protect human interests, humanity would act unilaterally. These conditions were not negotiable. The council agreed immediately. They understood that this was the best offer they would receive. Humanity was willing to try again, but not as naive newcomers who trusted blindly. They returned as cautious partners who remembered the cost of misplaced trust. Marcus Chen became the new human ambassador to the council. His first speech was brief and memorable. My grandmother stood in this chamber 10 years ago and told you that humanity would always stand alone. She was right. We learned that we cannot depend entirely on others for our safety. But she also said something else in private. She said that standing alone does not mean standing apart. Humanity returns to full engagement today, but we return changed. We remember what happened. We remember who stood with us and who did not. We remember the cost of trust and the price of isolation. We move forward with open eyes and guarded hearts. We hope for cooperation, but we are prepared for disappointment. This is not a threat. This is simply honesty. Let us build something better together, but let us never forget the lessons we learned. The galaxy accepted humanity's return. Trade increased. Cooperation expanded. Human scientists began sharing research again. Human artists performed on alien worlds. Human mediators helped resolve conflicts. Slowly, the bridges began to rebuild. But everyone understood that something fundamental had changed. Humanity was not the same peaceful species that had joined the galaxy 50 years ago. They were more cautious now, more prepared, more independent. They cooperated, but they also maintained their ability to act alone. They hoped for the best, but they planned for the worst. Other species began adopting similar approaches. The 11-day war had taught everyone a lesson. Peaceful intentions needed to be backed by defensive capabilities. Cooperation worked better when every partner could stand independently. Trust was good, but preparedness was better. Velnara died peacefully in her sleep 2 years after Marcus became ambassador. Her funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the galaxy. Humans gave her a special honor. She was buried on Earth in a cemetery reserved for people who had significantly contributed to human society. A plaque marked her grave with simple words. She tried to warn them. She understood.